Rain fell on the metal roof of the outpost, and Dale counted the drips instead of sleeping. It was not real rain. The moon had no rain of its own. The station made it every night, on purpose, because the old station doctor said the sound helped people rest. Dale did not think it helped much. He lay on his bunk with one arm behind his head and listened to the fake rain hit the fake roof, and next to his pillow, curled inside an old wool sock, a small dragon slept with her tail twitching. Her name was Pip. She was about the size of a house cat, with scales the color of wet slate and small wings she had not yet learned to fly with very well. She had been bonded to Dale for 8 months, ever since her egg hatched in the greenhouse dome, and she had, for reasons nobody understood, crawled straight across the floor and climbed into his boot. The station elders set a bond like that could not be undone, and honestly, Dale had never wanted to undo it. In the morning, the fake rain stopped, and real work started. Dale was a maintenance engineer, which meant he spent most of his day inside walls other people never saw, fixing pipes and wires and the machines that kept the air breathable and the water clean. He liked the work. It was honest work. A pipe was broken or it was not broken, and when you fixed it, you knew you had fixed it because water stopped leaking or air stopped hissing. There was no guessing. Pip liked to ride on his shoulder while he worked, or sometimes inside his tool bag, peeking out over the top like a nosy passenger. She was not much help yet. She was still learning to control her magic, and dragon magic, unlike human tools, did not come with an instruction manual. It came with feelings. Oral elders said that shaping magic was not about force, but about understanding what a thing wanted to become. Pip understood this in words. She did not understand it in practice. Every time she tried to shape metal or glass, something went wrong. Usually something small and silly, like a bent spoon turning into a spoon with too many curves, or a broken toy turning into a toy that hummed a strange note nobody asked for. She had not told anyone how much this bothered her. That day, Dale was called to fix a support strut in the east storage bay. A hauling crane had slipped its brake and dropped a crate wrong, and now a metal beam above the walkway was bent and groaning under the weight of the shelves it held up. It was not a huge job, but it was not a small one either, and Dale wanted to get it done before the shift ended. Pip rode along in his bag, watching with her sharp little eyes as he climbed a short ladder to examine the bent strut. He had his glasses pushed up on his nose, the same round-framed glasses he had worn every day since Pip had known him. Without them, Dale could barely read the numbers on a gauge from 2 feet away. He joked about it sometimes, saying his eyes had been built for someone with a much easier job. He was halfway up the ladder, running a scanner along the bent metal, when the beam gave a low groan and shifted. It was not supposed to shift. That was the whole problem with a broken support strut, and Dale knew it, and he still had not expected it to happen right then, right under his hands. The shelf above him tilted, a crate slid, and Dale threw himself backward off the ladder to get clear. He landed hard on the walkway, more surprised than hurt, and his glasses flew off his face and skittered across the metal floor. A second crate came down right where the glasses had landed. Pip, thrown from the bag in the scramble, tumbled onto the floor a few feet away and scrambled up just in time to see the crate crush the glasses flat under its corner with a small, ugly crunch. For a moment nobody moved. Dust settled. Somewhere down the corridor, an alarm chirped once and then went quiet, because the automatic systems had already logged the event and decided it was not serious enough to need a full alert. Dale sat up slowly, checking himself for injuries, and found none worse than a bruised elbow. He blinked hard, the way people do when the world has gone soft and unfamiliar, and reached out a hand toward where he thought his glasses should be. "Pip," he said, his voice careful. "Can you see them? I think I lost my glasses." Pip looked at the crushed frame lying under the corner of the crate. One lens was shattered into 3 pieces. The other was cracked clean across the middle. The frame itself was bent almost in half. One arm snapped off entirely. She looked at Dale, who was squinting at the blur of the room around him, patting the floor with his hand, trying to find something he could not see well enough to find. And before she understood why she was doing it, before she had really decided anything at all, Pip darted forward, scooped the broken glasses up in her front claws, and tucked them under her wing. "I find," she said, in the careful, clipped way she still spoke human. "I fix. You wait." Dale laughed, a little shaky from the fall. "You don't have to fix them, Pip. Just tell me where they are so I don't step on them again. But Pip was already backing away, wings held tight over the ruined glasses, her small heart thudding with a plan she had not thought through even a little. I fix, she said again, and turned and ran. There was a small maintenance alcove near the water tanks that almost nobody used, because the light in there flickered and the air smelled faintly of rust. Pip liked it for exactly those reasons. Nobody came looking for her there, and she could think without anyone watching. She sat on an overturned bucket with the broken glasses in front of her and stared at them like they might fix themselves if she waited long enough. They did not. Pip had told Dale she would fix them, and now she had to actually do it, and the trouble was, she was not entirely sure she could. Oral younglings her age were supposed to have mastered basic shaping by now. Basic shaping meant taking a simple object and gently guiding it back toward its original form, the way you might smooth a wrinkle out of a blanket. It was supposed to be easy. Her hatchmates back on the home station made it look easy, turning bent forks straight and cracked cups whole again during lessons, while Pip's attempts usually ended with the elders sighing and saying again, "Little one," but slower this time. She had never told anyone how much those sighs stung. But this was different. This was not a lesson. This was Dale, who could not see 3 feet in front of his own face, and who needed his glasses back today, not after weeks of careful practice. Pip took a breath, the way her teacher had shown her, and placed both front claws gently on the broken frame. "Become whole," she whispered, which was not exactly the right words, but oral magic worked as much on intention as on language, and she poured every bit of intention she had into it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the metal frame grew warm under her claws, and the 2 broken lenses began to shimmer, and Pip felt a rush of hope so strong it almost made her dizzy. Then the shimmer spread further than she meant it to. Dust and metal shavings from the alcove floor, stirred up by the magic, began drifting toward the glasses instead of settling. Pip tried to pull the spell back, the way her teacher always said you should, gently, like reeling in a fishing line, but the magic did not want to be reeled in. It had already decided, in its strange dragon magic way, that whole meant more, and it kept adding, kept fusing, kept building. By the time Pip managed to stop it, gasping and shaking with the effort, the glasses in front of her did not look broken anymore. They looked wrong. The lenses had fused with flecks of rust and dust into something cloudy and faintly glowing, more like river stones than glass. The frame had thickened in odd places, lumpy where it should have been thin, and one arm had grown a strange little curl at the end like a pig's tail. Pip stared at her work in horror. She picked the ruined glasses up carefully, turning them over, hoping in the dim, flickering light that maybe they looked better than she thought. They did not. If anything, the light made the glowing lenses look worse, an unnatural pale green that pulsed faintly, like something alive and unhappy. She heard footsteps in the corridor outside and quickly shoved the glasses into a gap behind a water pipe, out of sight, her heart pounding. It was not Dale. It was one of the storage crew, walking past without even glancing into the alcove. Pip let out a breath she had been holding and slumped back onto the bucket. She could not give Dale these. He would ask what happened, and she would have to explain that she had tried to fix them with magic and made them worse. And then he would know, really know, the way the elders already seemed to suspect, that Pip's shaping magic was not very good at all. So instead, when Dale found her an hour later, squinting around the corridor with one hand out in front of him like he was walking through fog, and asked, gently, if she had found his glasses, Pip looked up at him and said the first thing that came into her head. "Still looking," she said. "Almost fine. You go work. I bring soon." Dale hesitated. Even half blind, he could tell something in her voice was off, a tightness that was not usually there. But he was also badly behind on his own repairs, unable to read gauges or labels. And there was a supply inspection coming from the Oral Elders in a few days that the whole station was preparing for. He did not have time to chase down a small worried dragon and ask her what was wrong. "Okay," he said slowly. "Soon, though. I really can't see much like this." "Soon," Pip promised, and watched him feel his way carefully down the corridor with one hand trailing along the wall, and felt something heavy settle in her chest that had nothing to do with magic at all. Behind the water pipe, the ruined glasses sat glowing faintly in the dark, waiting. 2 days passed, and the glasses stayed hidden behind the water pipe, and Pip stayed miserable. She had gone back to them twice more, each time telling herself this attempt would be the one that worked. She remembered, half remembered really, an older dragon back home describing a stronger shaping technique, one used for reinforcing the hulls of small transport ships. It was not meant for anything as delicate as glass, but Pip reasoned that if her gentle magic had gone wrong by adding too much, maybe a stronger, more forceful kind of magic would fix things by simply pushing everything back into place at once. It did not work like that. The second attempt made the lenses almost impossible to scratch, which under different circumstances might have been useful, except that it also made them curve in ways that would twist anyone's vision into swirls, and the frame, instead of shrinking back to its normal size, grew a little wider and warm to the touch, and stubbornly refused to bend back when Pip tried to reshape it with her claws. It felt, she thought bitterly, less like fixing something and more like arguing with it. She gave up for the night, hid the glasses again, and lay awake in her wool sock beside Dale's pillow, listening to the fake rain and feeling like the worst dragon that had ever hatched. Meanwhile, Dale was not doing much better. Without his glasses, small mistakes had started creeping into his work. He misread the pressure gauge on the coolant line outside the greenhouse dome, thinking the needle sat lower than it did, and by the time he realized his error, coolant had flooded out over the floor of the maintenance corridor. Thankfully nothing dangerous, but enough of a mess that it drew the attention of Nolan, the station's engineering lead, a broad, no-nonsense man who did not love surprises. "You've been off all week," Nolan said, standing with his arms crossed while a cleanup drone hummed along the floor behind him. First the strut inspection got delayed, now this. "What's going on with you?" Dale considered, for one honest second, telling him the truth. "My glasses got crushed and my dragon insisted on fixing them herself, and now I can barely see straight, and I don't know where they are." It sounded ridiculous even in his own head. Worse, he was afraid that if he explained it right, it would sound like Pip's fault, and word would spread, and the oral elders coming for inspection in a few days would hear about a bonded dragon who could not even manage basic shaping without causing problems. Pip was already anxious about that inspection. Dale had noticed the way she picked at her food lately, the way her tail curled tighter than usual when anyone mentioned the elder's visit. So instead he said, "Just tired. I'll tighten up." Nolan did not look convinced, but he let it go, mostly because Dale's work, even squinting and half-guessing at readouts, was usually careful enough not to cause real harm. This time it had only been luck. That evening, Dale sat on the edge of his bunk, turning an old spare magnifying lens between his fingers, the closest thing he had to a temporary fix, and thought about Pip. She had been strange for days, quiet in a different way than her usual chatty, curious quiet. She flinched a little whenever he mentioned the missing glasses. She kept disappearing for short stretches without explanation, and there was a very particular, ashy sort of smell that sometimes clung to her scales when she came back, the kind of smell that Dale, after 8 months of living with a small dragon, had come to associate with magic that had not gone quite right. He was not stupid. He had a strong guess about what she was doing, and an even stronger guess about why she had not told him. He thought about marching over and demanding to know, the way Nolan might have. But that was not how things worked between him and Pip. She had climbed into his boot as a hatchling and never left his side since, not because he ordered her to, but because somewhere along the way they had decided, without ever really saying it out loud, to trust each other. So instead of demanding, Dale decided, he would ask. He waited until the fake rain started that night, until the corridor lights dimmed to their evening setting, and Pip curled up in her wool sock looking smaller and more tired than he had ever seen her. "Pip," he said quietly into the dark, "I think I know something's wrong, and I think it's about my glasses. You don't have to tell me tonight, but whenever you're ready, I want to hear it. All of it. I'm not going to be angry." There was a long silence, filled only with the sound of fake rain on the roof. Then, very small, from inside the sock, Pip's voice answered. "Tomorrow," she said. "I tell tomorrow. I promise." Dale nodded in the dark, even though she probably could not see it any better than he could see her, and let the fake rain fill the silence between them until they both, eventually, fell asleep. Morning came, and Pip kept her promise, though it took her most of the walk to the water tank alcove to work up the courage to actually speak. Dale followed her slowly, one hand trailing along the corridor wall out of habit now, letting her lead him the way she had been quietly doing for the past 2 days without him fully noticing, nudging him gently around obstacles, tugging at his sleeve before doorways. He realized, walking behind her small shape in the dim light, that she had been trying to take care of him this whole time, even while hiding her own mistake. At the alcove, Pip stopped in front of the water pipe, reached behind it with a claw, and pulled out the glasses. Dale could not see them clearly, not without his glasses to see with, which struck him as almost funny in a sad sort of way, but he could make out enough. A lumpy, warm-looking frame. Lenses that seemed to glow faintly even in the dim light. A pale, unhappy green. "I fix," Pip said, her voice small. "I try. 2 times. Not fix. Make worse." She told him everything then, the words coming faster once she started, tumbling over each other the way they did when she was upset and had not yet learned to slow her human speech down. She told him about the first attempt, the dust and shavings fusing into the glass. She told him about the second attempt, the hull-reinforcing technique meant for ships, not spectacles, and how the lenses would not focus and the frame would not shrink back down no matter how she pushed at it. "I not good dragon," she finished, wings drooping. "Elders say shaping easy. Not easy for me. Never easy for me. I try fix small thing, cannot fix small thing. Elders see me at inspection, they know. Everyone know." Dale crouched down slowly, getting himself to her eye level, which was not far off the ground at all. "Pip," he said, "can I tell you something about my job?" She sniffled, an odd little dragon sound, and nodded. "When I fix a broken pipe," Dale said, "I don't get it right the first time. Almost never. I try something, and if it's wrong, the pipe tells me it's wrong, usually by leaking on my boots. So I try something else. Sometimes I try 4 or 5 things before one of them works. That's not me being bad at my job. That's just what the job is. Nobody expects the first try to be the right one. But shaping magic's supposed to be feeling," Pip said. "Elders say if you understand the thing, magic just work." "Maybe," Dale said. "Or maybe you understood the feeling part fine, and the problem was you didn't understand the glasses." "Not really. You knew they were broken. Did you know exactly what shape the lenses needed to be? Did you know how thick the frame should sit, or how wide it needs to be to fit my face without pinching my ears?" Pip blinked at him. "No. I do," Dale said. "I've worn the same prescription for 6 years. I know the numbers. I know the curve. I know exactly how it should feel sitting on my nose. What if the magic wasn't broken, Pip? What if it just didn't have enough information to work with? You can't build the right shape from a feeling alone if you don't know what the right shape actually is." Pip sat very still, turning this over slowly, the way she turned over most new ideas, carefully and a little suspiciously, as if it might bite her. "You know numbers?" she asked. "I know numbers," Dale confirmed. "And I know tools that can grind glass and bend metal frames with real precision. What I don't have is magic that can lock a shape in place once it's right, so it doesn't warp or crack again. That's the part you're good at, even if it hasn't felt like it lately." "You not angry?" Pip asked, very quietly. "I hide. I lie. I say almost find, when not find at all." Dale sighed, but it was not an angry sigh. "I was worried more than angry. I don't love that you hid it from me, but I understand why. You were scared, and you didn't want me to think less of you before that inspection. I get it. I've hidden mistakes before too, mostly from Nolan." He gave a small, rueful smile she probably could not fully see. "Doesn't work very well, does it?" "No," Pip admitted. "Work bad." "So," Dale said, "how about this time we don't hide it? We fix it together, out loud, mistakes and all. And if the elders ask about it at the inspection, we tell them exactly what happened. 2 failed tries, and then a fix that worked because a dragon and a human stopped trying to solve it alone." Pip looked down at the warm, lumpy, glowing glasses in her claws, and then up at Dale's unfocused, patient face, and for the first time in 2 days, felt something in her chest loosen just slightly. "Okay," she said. "Together. 3rd time work. I hope." "3rd time usually does," Dale said, standing up and offering his palm for her to climb onto his shoulder, the way she always did. "Come on. Let's go find a grinder and some real specs, and let's stop guessing." The workshop smelled like machine oil and hot metal, which Pip found strangely comforting, maybe because it reminded her of the times she had ridden in Dale's tool bag while he worked, watching him fix things one careful step at a time instead of trying to will them into place all at once. Dale set the ruined glasses on the workbench under the brightest lamp he could find, squinting to bring them into some kind of focus, and pulled up his old prescription record on a data pad, holding it close to his face to read the numbers. "Here," he said, tapping the screen and turning it so Pip could see, even though the tiny numbers meant nothing to her. "This is the curve my lenses need. This is the width across the frame, from hinge to hinge. This is how far the arms need to reach before they bend around my ears. None of this is a guess. It's exact." Pip studied the glowing lumpy glasses, then the numbers, then Dale's face, comparing them slowly. "You do metal part," she said. "Grind lens shape, bend frame close. I do small part. Fix curve exact. Lock so no break again." "That's the plan," Dale agreed. He started first, since his part did not need him to see perfectly, only to feel and measure carefully, which was something he had done 100 times before, blind or not. He clamped the warped frame into a small vise and used a fine file to slowly work down the lumpy ridges Pip's second attempt had created, checking the width against his data pad measurements every few strokes. It was slow work. He had to stop often, running his fingers over the metal to feel for evenness, since his eyes could not be trusted for fine detail anymore. Pip watched closely, more closely than she had ever watched anything in her lessons back home, because for the first time, shaping did not feel like a mystery she had to guess her way through. It felt like a problem with an answer, and Dale was showing her exactly what the answer needed to look like before she ever touched it with magic. While Dale worked the frame, Pip focused on the lenses. She did not try to fix them all at once this time. Instead, remembering what Dale had said about pipes leaking on his boots, she tried a small test first, touching just the corner of one lens with the barest thread of magic, watching carefully to see what happened. The glowing green faded slightly at the corner, and the cloudy stone-like texture thinned, just a little, revealing a hint of clear glass underneath. "It worked," she said, surprised. "Small, but work." "Good," Dale said, not looking up from the frame. "Now do it slow. Same way I'm doing this. A little, then check, then a little more." It took most of the afternoon. Pip worked in small, careful pulls of magic, guided each time by Dale reading out the exact curve numbers from his data pad, describing in detail how the lens should feel under her claws when it was right, thin at the edges, gently rounded, no thicker than a fingernail near the center. She stopped when the shimmer wanted to spread too far, holding it back the way her teacher had always told her to, except this time she actually understood, really understood, what holding back meant, because she had a clear target to hold it back toward. Slowly, the cloudy green stone faded into something close to real glass again. Slowly, the lumps in the frame shrank down under Dale's careful filing and Pip's last, gentle shaping touches, until the metal sat neat and light in his palm. When they finally held the glasses up together under the workshop lamp, they were not fancy. They looked, mostly, like ordinary glasses, plain black frames, simple round lenses. But if you looked closely, in just the right light, there was the faintest shimmer along the edge of the frame, like a thin thread of gold woven into the metal. "Try," Pip said, holding her breath without quite realizing she was doing it. Dale slid the glasses onto his face and blinked, and the workshop sharpened around him, the edges of the workbench crisp again, the numbers on his data pad readable from across the room. Pip's small worried face suddenly clear and close and hopeful in front of him. "Pip," he said slowly, "I can see." He turned his head, testing, looking at the far wall, at his own hands, at the faint shimmer of gold along the frame's edge reflected for a second in the polished metal of the workbench. "They're a little heavier than my old pair," he admitted, "and I think that shimmer means they'll survive getting dropped by a falling crate a lot better this time." Pip let out a long breath, and for the first time in days, something that felt almost like a real smile. "Third time work," she said. "Together work." "Together works," Dale agreed, and reached out to scratch gently under her chin, which she allowed, just this once, without complaint. The elder arrived the next morning on the supply shuttle, along with 3 younglings from other stations, all there for the same routine inspection that had been hanging over Pip like a storm cloud for weeks. Her name was Thessaly, and she was old enough that her scales had faded from bright slate to a soft silvery gray, with the calm, unhurried way of moving that Pip associated with dragons who no longer needed to prove anything to anybody. She settled into the station's main hall, where a small crowd of both humans and dragons had gathered, some out of duty, some out of simple curiosity about how the younglings were coming along with their shaping. Pip sat on Dale's shoulder, her claws gripping just a little tighter than usual, and watched the other younglings go first. One managed to smooth a dented cup back to its original shape in a single try, drawing a polite nod from Thessaly. Another struggled with a simple task and had to try 3 times before getting it right, which drew no particular reaction at all, just patient waiting from the elder, and Pip found herself surprised by that. She had built up, in her own head, an image of the inspection as a test you either passed cleanly or failed badly. And here was proof already that it was not quite that simple. Then it was Pip's turn. She could have picked something small and safe, a spoon, a cup, anything low risk to demonstrate basic shaping and be done with it. Instead, before she could talk herself out of it, she reached into Dale's jacket pocket and pulled out the old crushed spare frame he had kept as a backup, an early failed attempt from that very first day, and set it on the table in front of the elder. This, Pip said, steadying her voice, was human's glasses. Crane accident break them. I try fix. 2 times, I make worse, not better. She held up the spare, letting Thessaly see the leftover strange curl in the metal arm from her second, over-forceful attempt. 3rd time, human help. He know exact numbers, exact shape needed. I not guess anymore. I shape to his numbers, small careful, check every step. 3rd time work. She gestured to Dale, who took off the finished glasses and set them gently beside the failed spare for comparison, the faint gold shimmer catching the hall lights. Thessaly picked up both pieces, one in each clawed hand, turning them slowly, studying the crude, warped failure beside the clean, precise success. The hall had gone quiet. Pip could feel the attention of every dragon and human in the room, and for a moment the old fear crept back up her spine, the fear that this honesty would be seen as weakness, that admitting 2 failures out loud in front of an elder was exactly the kind of thing that would confirm she was not good enough. Then Thessaly did something Pip had not expected. She smiled, the slow, knowing smile of someone who had clearly seen many younglings struggle with exactly this kind of thing before. Raw power in shaping, Thessaly said, addressing the whole room now, not just Pip, is common among younglings, and it fades quickly if it is never paired with patience. What you have shown me, small one, is rarer. You failed, twice. And instead of hiding it or forcing a 3rd attempt through sheer stubbornness, you sought out precise knowledge from outside yourself, and you shaped with restraint, guided by numbers you did not fully understand until your partner explained them to you. She set the 2 pieces down gently on the table. That, she said, is not a lesser kind of magic. That is the beginning of mastery. Dale, standing beside Pip with his newly working eyes, could not help adding, quietly but clearly enough for those nearby to hear, for what it's worth, my job works the same way. Every fix I've ever made started with a few that didn't work. The trick isn't getting it right the first time. It's not being afraid to try again, especially with somebody watching your back. Thessaly's gaze moved between the 2 of them, human and dragon, with an expression Pip could not quite name, somewhere between approval and quiet amusement. It seems, the elder said, your bond has taught you both something useful. Keep at it. The inspection moved on to the next youngling, and the tight knot of fear that had sat in Pip's chest for days finally, fully, let go. Later that evening, with the fake rain drumming softly on the roof again, Dale lay on his bunk reading a maintenance log through his new glasses, clear and sharp, the faint gold thread along the frame catching the low light. Beside his pillow, in her wool sock, Pip lay curled and drowsy, more relaxed than she had been in a long time. Dale? She murmured, half asleep already. Yeah, Pip. Next broken thing, she said, we fix together. From beginning. Not hide. Dale smiled, setting the data pad aside and turning off the light. Deal, he said. Together from the beginning. Outside, the fake rain kept falling, steady and familiar, and for the first time in a long while, neither of them minded the sound at all.